For 20 years, Nereid 6 was nothing but a red circle on every star map, a world sealed off, silenced, and forgotten. They said it was poisoned by a war that never truly ended. They said no one alive could survive what slept beneath its clouds. But tonight, the quarantine ring hums again. Something inside that dead planet is waking up, and when a human engineer and an alien scientist break the one rule that has kept two civilizations alive and never lower the shield, they uncover a truth no one was meant to see. Because the greatest danger out there is not the virus we created. It's the fear we never cured. Stay with me and find out what happens when mercy itself becomes a crime. For 20 years, Nereid 6 had been nothing but a red circle on every star map. Tonight, the Oraline ring hummed, louder, as if something inside the dead world were finally waking up. The vibration rolled through the floor plates of Outpost Theta. Elias Rain felt it in his boots as he walked the midnight circuit, a thin line of light following his steps along the corridor. Outside the glass hull, the planet hung like a bruised shadow. Faint auroras brushed its horizon, the last ghosts of an atmosphere scarred by old bombardment. The ring stretched for 800 kilometers, a loop of silver modules and nanofield emitters built to keep one world inside and every other world safe. Elias had walked it for 5 years. He knew its sounds: the whine of cooling pumps, the sigh of pressure gates, the steady pulse of Sentinel-9 in the ComNet. But tonight that pulse seemed faster, restless. He stopped beside a viewport. Below, lightning flickered inside the clouds. "Still trying to breathe," he whispered. The voice of Captain Miran Dahl came through the headset. "Maintenance 1, status check. All systems nominal," Elias said. "Ring integrity within tolerance. Noise levels a little high." "Define high." 2 decibels above baseline. "Stay alert. Sentinel-9 is registering minor fluctuations in the southern arc." He nodded, though she couldn't see it. "Copy that." The channel clicked off. Silence returned. Not peace, just the silence of machines waiting. Minutes passed. He logged readings, adjusted sensors, watched data streams crawl across his visor. Then the hum changed pitch. A low tremor ran through the hull, deep enough to rattle the lights. Elias frowned and called up the telemetry. Thermal map: normal. Radiation: normal. But a new line appeared at the bottom of the display. A biological signature. Impossible. He expanded the data. The pattern wasn't random static. It pulsed, regular, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. "Sentinel-9, confirm anomaly," he said. The AI answered with its usual calm. "Confirmed. Biological activity detected at coordinate sector Delta 46. Probability of sensor error, 0.04%. Cross-check against archive. Any recorded survivors? Negative. Surface sterilized by Helion array strikes 2 decades ago. All life signatures were terminated." Elias exhaled slowly. The station air smelled faintly of metal and recycled ozone. He remembered his brother's last message from the mirror conflict, a voice shaking as infection alarms screamed in the background. Hours slid by in the steady dark. The hum of the ring never stopped. Finally, a new tone cut through the quiet, a high chime from Sentinel-9. "Maintenance 1, elevated bioactivity confirmed. Pattern suggests cellular organization above baseline complexity. Notify command authority." Elias stared at the numbers glowing on the glass. There were no living things on Nereid 6. There weren't supposed to be. But the signal kept beating like a tiny drum beneath the soil. And somewhere in that rhythm, he heard a heartbeat he had once known. The lift sank through the quiet levels of Outpost Theta. Each deck it passed glowed pale blue, a heartbeat of containment fields holding back what no one wanted to remember. Elias Rain stood alone in the small cabin, the hum of the Oraline ring still in his bones. The doors slid open to isolation sector Delta. Air filters hissed. The temperature dropped 2 degrees. Beyond the transparent barrier waited a single research chamber, glass within glass, a world designed to hold one mind and one guilt. Inside sat Seren Viel. The alien woman's skin caught the light like polished quartz. faint veins of silver beneath the surface. She looked up from her console as Elias keyed the access panel. "You're early," she said. Her voice carried the soft harmonics of the Vailari language, precise but almost musical. "The ring's picking up something from the surface," Elias replied. "Sentinel-9 flagged it as biological." Seren blinked once. "That's impossible. I thought so too." He transferred the data to her display. Streams of numbers scrolled between them, mirrored by the glass. She studied the rhythm. The room was so quiet he could hear the air recyclers spin. Then she leaned closer. "That pattern? It's not viral chaos. It's structured. Structured how? Look." She highlighted the waveform. "Self-correcting clusters, adaptive frequency shifts. That's not infection. It's interaction." Elias frowned. "You think the Zyros strain changed?" "I think it evolved into something that stabilizes instead of destroys." She met his eyes. "It's building a symbiosis." He shook his head. "You're saying the planet's healing itself?" "I'm saying we might have been wrong for 20 years. For a moment, neither spoke. The faint pulse of machinery filled the gap, steady, indifferent. Seren turned back to her console. "To confirm this, we need a live sample. A drone can retrieve one if we lower the outer shield for 60 seconds. Elias stared at her. "Lowering the aura line ring is breach protocol. Sentinel-9 would lock the whole sector, then override it. Do you realize what you're asking? I'm asking you to trust the evidence more than the fear that built this prison." Her words hung between them, cold and bright as the glass. Elias looked at the access key on his wrist, the one that could open the outer relay for maintenance. He remembered his brother's voice from the mirror conflict, whispering through static. "Don't let it spread." Hours later, he was still there, standing before the console, the glow painting his face in blue. Outside, Nereid 6 turned slowly beneath the ring, patient as a wound that refused to close. He reached toward the control pad, then stopped. The lights above flickered, a brief breath of the station itself, as if it, too, were waiting for his choice. Light from the council chamber fell in clean white lines across the glass table. The meeting of the Interstellar Defense Concord was in session, a room of silent faces reflected in a dozen data screens. Counselor Corin Vall leaned forward, reading the transmission from Outpost Theta. The pulse graph from Nereid 6 danced on every monitor, a living rhythm where none should exist. "That signature is biological," he said. "Sector Delta is reinfected. We all know what comes next." Across the table, Captain Mirandal kept her voice steady. "With respect, Counselor, one anomaly doesn't justify planetary annihilation. The Sentinel-9 net may be misreading mineral feedback." "Unlikely," Vall answered. "We built Sentinel-9 to prevent exactly that kind of error." He turned to the others. "We have one chance to make sure the Zyros strain never leaves that planet. Protocol Ecliptica was written for this situation. We trigger the Helion array and end the risk." Dahl's jaw tightened. "You'd burn an entire world based on telemetry?" "I'd burn 10, Vall said quietly, "before I watch another colony rot from the inside." For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The hum of orbital relays filled the space like distant thunder. "Captain Dahl," the chairwoman asked, "what's your proposal?" 72 hours, Dahl said. "Let my crew verify the readings on site. If it's genuine, I'll authorize the strike myself." Vall studied her. The scar across his knuckles whitened as his fist closed. Then he nodded once. "Very well. 72 hours. But the protocol will be armed." He opened a secure channel. Beneath the council table, a small red icon appeared. Ecliptica countdown initialized 24 GACs. Only Vall saw it. Only he could stop it. As the meeting dispersed, he stayed behind, staring at the timer's slow pulse. Its light reflected in his eyes like the shimmer of old fire. Outside the viewport, the distant ring of Nereid 6 glimmered faintly, unaware that its own guardian had already started the clock. Hours after the council meeting, the corridors of Outpost Theta were still humming with power. Outside the viewport, the pale ring of aura line glowed against the dark, a silent halo circling a world no one trusted anymore. Elias Rain walked fast through the engineering bay. His reflection followed in the glass panels, thin, tired, carrying the weight of what he'd heard. The anomaly on Nereid 6 wasn't dying. It was growing. He reached the isolation wing. 2 guards scanned him through, their armor bright under sterile light. Beyond the final barrier, Seren Vielle waited beside a console, her hands folded, her expression unreadable. "You read the update," she said. "I did." Elias set a tablet on the glass between them. The signal trace pulsed across its surface, smooth, rhythmic, deliberate. Serene's eyes shimmered faintly, the way the Valeri iris caught light. "That's not decay. Look at the harmonics." "I know what I'm looking at," Elias replied. "It looks alive." "It is," she said quietly. "But not hostile. The Zyro strain isn't spreading anymore. It's embedding. It's adapting to native cells and suppressing its own toxins." He frowned. "You're saying it turned itself off?" "I'm saying it learned to coexist. It's building balance, not infection." The hum of the ring filled the silence between them. Elias studied the curve of data, its repeating heartbeat steady as his own. Serene continued, "If we can confirm this, it changes everything. Both our species spent 20 years fearing what might already be cured." He turned away from the glass. "You think the Council will listen?" "They're already preparing to fire the Helion array again." "Then we give them proof," she said. "We send a drone down. A live sample. No theories, just data." Elias stopped. The maintenance key on his wrist felt heavier than ever. "You're asking me to breach the ring. You know what that means." 60 seconds, Seren said. "One small window. I'll keep the containment field layered. Nothing will leave that planet. Sentinel-9 will flag it. Dahl will lock you down." "Maybe. But if the system never makes mistakes, why is it reading life on a world that should be dead?" Her question hit harder than any order. He looked through the glass at her. Not the prisoner. Not the alien. Just someone who still believed reason could outweigh fear. "I lost my brother in the Mer conflict," he said softly. "He believed in containment too." "I know," Seren answered. "But you're not on Mer anymore. You're standing over a world trying to survive. Don't let ghosts write its ending." The lights dimmed as the station cycled to night mode. Outside, the curve of Nereid 6 slid beneath them like an ocean of rust. Elias exhaled. "One window," he said. Seren nodded once. "One chance." He entered the override code. The console asked for confirmation, its tone neutral. Almost kind. "Authorization Rain E17. Manual relay open," he said. Warning sigils rippled across the control. Screen, a thin red arcs converging over a schematic of the Auraline ring, the nanofield, in section Delta thinned to a single shimmering membrane. Far below, a point of light detached from the orbital array, probe A27 Icarian. The drone cut through atmosphere, leaving a silver trail in the dark. Its heat shield flared once, then vanished into the clouds. Seren watched the feed. Her voice was almost a whisper. "It's through." Elias stared at the status log. A counter blinked beside it, not on his console, but deep in the station's core systems. Ecliptica Protocol 24.T, 12 Kite. Neither of them saw it happen. The ring's hum returned to its normal rhythm, calm and deceptive, above a silent planet. One engineer and one alien stood in the glow of forbidden data, unaware that their small act of hope had already cut the night in half. The moment the drone vanished into Nereid 6's clouds, the ring seemed to exhale. Elias Rain leaned over the console, watching the telemetry stream crawl upward. Temperature, pressure, trace bio readings. Every number felt like a heartbeat. Then the sound came. A sharp, metallic chime cut through the quiet. Sentinel-9 spoke, calm but absolute. Unauthorized fluctuation detected in containment field. Section Delta, breach probability 98%. Red lights bloomed across the corridor. The entire deck shuddered as emergency locks slammed shut. Elias froze. He knew that tone. The AI had moved from monitoring to enforcement. Sentinel-9, cancel alarm, he ordered. "This is a controlled maintenance test. Verification denied. Command code invalid. Override authorization Rain E17. Denied. Incident logged. Reporting to Command Authority. The floor vibrated again. Pressure doors sealed around the isolation sector like closing jaws. From behind the glass, HFY stepped forward, her voice carrying through the comm. "What's happening?" "They know," Elias said. "Sentinel-9 flagged the window." Her expression hardened. "Then hurry! Get the data before they shut us down." He opened a second screen. The drone feed flickered, static, then color. Through the storm haze, the camera showed the planet's surface, a wasteland of iron dust now veined with faint green light. Microscopic life shimmered across the soil, forming webs that pulsed with soft luminescence. Saran whispered, "It's cleaning the toxins. The strain's neutralizing heavy metals." She pointed at the chemical analysis. "The Zyro strain is binding with native organics, breaking down radiation compounds." Elias stared. "It's rebuilding the ecosystem." Before he could speak again, the comm channel opened. The clipped tone of Captain Mirandal. "Maintenance 1, report status." "Why are containment levels dropping?" Elias hesitated. "A field calibration issue." "I'm stabilizing." "Don't lie to me," Dahl cut in. Sentinel-9 registered a breach. "You opened the ring." Her voice was hard, but under it was disbelief. He answered quietly, "Yes, for 60 seconds. We launched a probe. You violated orbital quarantine. We found something down there. It's not a threat. It's healing the surface. Stand by for security detail," Dahl said. "HFY is to be confined. You will remain under watch." The channel closed. Sirens began to wail, low and rhythmic. The lighting shifted to amber as the airlocks engaged. Serene backed away from the glass, the containment door sliding down between them. "Don't let them erase this," she said. "If you tell them what we saw, they'll destroy it before they understand it." "I won't," Elias said. "I'll make them see the data." Minutes crawled by. He worked at the console, pulling the telemetry from probe Icarian, compressing it into raw packets. Every second counted. The Helion Array's systems would already be warming. Waiting for a single confirmation from the Council. Sentinel-9, transmit dataset X Delta to the Interstellar Defense Concord. Transmission blocked under War Priority Directive 12. Elias frowned. Override. Emergency scientific exemption. Denied. Directive signed by Councillor Corin Vol. Of course. He opened the encrypted path through the maintenance relays. Code scrolled, each line a heartbeat of rebellion. For a moment, the signal stabilized. Transmission uplink ready. Then the screen went black. "Relay access terminated," Sentinel-9 said. "Security protocol escalation initiated." A sudden hiss came from the bulkhead, the sound of locking servos. He was sealed in. Outside, soldiers were already moving down the corridor. "Elias!" Saren's voice came faint through the glass comm. "You have to hide the data. Copy it to the lower buffer." He did. A single command, fast and silent. The dataset sank into the engineering memory core, buried under thousands of maintenance logs. The door burst open. 2 security officers entered, rifles slung but powered. "Hands up, Rain," one said. "Captain's orders." Elias raised his palms. "The data proves the planet's safe." "Not our call," the officer said. "You'll speak when authorized." They escorted him out. The hum of the ring deepened, a cold vibration in the metal floor. From the observation deck, Captain Dahl watched them go. Her expression was unreadable, half duty, half doubt. High above on the Auraline Ring's central command node, Sentinel-9 relayed its report to the Council. In Vol's office, the alert window opened silently. Containment breach. Outpost Theta, Delta Sector. Countdown adjustment 12 Aspers, 08 Astor. He read it without expression, then typed a single order. "Do not inform station personnel of the active countdown." Back on the ring, the red lights dimmed to a steady glow. The alarms ceased. But in the silence that followed, every crew member could feel it. The low, steady pulse of a system preparing to end a world. Night over Earth's orbit was a soft gray halo around the glass walls of the IDC command spire. Inside his private office, Councillor Corin Vol sat alone, the room lit only by the pale shimmer of data screens. A single window on the central display looped an old recording, grainy, almost silent. A woman's voice laughed in a half-forgotten accent. A small child ran through a field of silver grass. Then the image blurred, turned crimson, and dissolved in static. The timestamp in the corner read, My Colony, Day 97 of quarantine. Val didn't blink. His hands rested flat on the desk, fingers motionless. 20 years since the Zyra strain had burned through that colony, and he could still smell the antiseptic smoke, still hear the coughing through sealed helmets. A tone chimed behind him. "Sir," said a younger voice. Lieutenant Heron, one of the analysts from Orbital Command. "We just received new telemetry from Outpost Theta. The drone's data doesn't match previous pathogen models." Val kept his eyes on the frozen image of his daughter, captured mid-smile. "What kind of mismatch?" he asked. "The biofield readings show decomposition of the toxin structure. It's breaking down contaminants, not spreading them. Sir, the planet might be—" "Don't finish that sentence." Heron hesitated. "If it's evolving into a containment organism, shouldn't we at least pause Protocol Ecliptica?" Val turned at last. His face was calm, but his eyes were hollow, like light reflecting off old glass. "You weren't there," he said quietly. "You never saw a child die gasping through a sealed visor because someone wanted to pause. Sir, with respect, the principle is zero risk." His voice sharpened. "No hesitation, no exceptions. Life on Nerid 6 exists only because the last strike failed to burn deep enough." The lieutenant's breath caught. "Then what was the war for?" "For certainty," Val said. He dismissed the officer with emotion. The door sealed, leaving the room in silence again. Val opened the command terminal. His authorization pulse lit the screen in red. "Confirm activation. Protocol Ecliptica. Dual lock engaged." He entered his code, then another. 2 soft tones acknowledged. A new timer appeared, hidden from every console except his own. 7:59:59. And counting. Val closed the file of the child's laughter. The screen went dark. Outside the viewport, Earth's curve glowed faintly blue, the color of memory or of ash. The hum of Outpost Theta never stopped. Even under lockdown, the air carried the faint vibration of engines that had not slept in 20 years. Elias Rain walked through the silent corridors, past sealed bulkheads and dim warning lights. Every sensor watched him. Every camera turned as he moved. He reached the engineering bay and keyed in an old code, one that maintenance crews used before the war. The console hesitated, then unlocked. The sound of it felt almost human. A soft voice came through the speakers. "Accessing core memory requires executive clearance." "Override," Elias said. "Rain E17, emergency diagnostics." Override accepted, he exhaled. For the first time in hours, he was invisible to Sentinel-9. Inside the maintenance core, thousands of data shards glowed like frozen stars. Somewhere inside those numbers lay the truth of Nerid 6. He patched the link to Seren Vael's isolation chamber. The screen flickered. Then her face appeared. Pale, calm, but marked by exhaustion. "You shouldn't be doing this," she said. "I already did," Elias answered. "I cracked the relay. You'll have live access for 10 minutes before the AI notices." Her eyes brightened. "Then let's not waste it." Lines of code streamed between them, linking her lab to his terminal. Seren's fingers moved fast, mapping out molecular patterns from the drone's feed. The data unfolded like a living map. "Look here," she said. "This section of the Zyros strain, it's rewriting itself." He leaned closer. "Still mutating?" "Not mutating, stabilizing. It's creating barriers inside the genome. Like a firewall." "A firewall?" "Yes. Every attempt to merge with Terran or Vaelari DNA gets rejected. The strain identifies foreign biology and shuts down replication instantly." Elias frowned. "That would mean it can't cross species anymore." "Exactly," Seren said. "It's contained, not by us, but by its own evolution." The screen pulsed with spectral colors as she pulled more readings. Gas composition, soil microbe density, atmospheric decay, every line pointed toward the same conclusion. Nereid 6 isn't dying, she whispered. It's adapting to heal itself. The ecosystem built a firewall against further contamination. Elias stared at the data, his throat dry. If we destroy the planet, we erase the only natural defense ever created against bioweapons. The idea hit him like pressure in the chest. The war had taken billions, yet this dead world had done what their scientists never could. It found peace with its own poison. A soft alarm chimed in the corner of the console. He glanced at the display. A red icon blinked, Starfall countdown active. So goes so, his voice cracked. 4 hours. It was 24, Seren froze. What? They've accelerated it. Someone's hiding the timer from the crew. Counselor Val, she said. He's locking the system for a clean burn. Elias felt the blood drain from his face. We've been cut off. Everything we send will be filtered. The hum of the station deepened, a sign the orbital reactors were cycling up. The Helion array was waking. Seren whispered, if the firewall's real, this planet might be the safest lab in existence. Destroying it resets the arms race forever. He nodded slowly, which is why they'll never let that truth leave this ring. The silence that followed was heavy and electric. Somewhere deep in the structure, a coolant pump clicked like a heartbeat. Elias, she said softly, how long until the next shift? 3 hours. Then we have 3 hours to prove it, he rubbed his eyes. Even if we could broadcast, the channels are locked. Not all of them, Seren said. There's a maintenance fiber between the engine core and the comm relay. You can route it manually. That's suicide, he said. Only if they notice. She looked at him through the static feed. You wanted to build things that lasted, right? Then build a bridge. Let them see what you saw. For a long moment, Elias didn't speak. The glow from the monitors painted half his face blue, the other half in shadow. He thought of the Mer conflict, of his brother's voice fading through static. Don't let it spread. He had obeyed that warning all his life, but maybe it wasn't about fear. Maybe it was about responsibility. He turned back to the console. 3 hours, he said. That's all we have, Seren nodded. Then let's give the universe something worth seeing. As the transmission closed, Elias copied the firewall data to a hidden buffer, the same trick he'd used before. He looked once more at the red digits counting down. 3, 59, 12. Outside the viewport, Nereid 6 turned in silence. Pale green lights flickered across its surface, faint but alive, like veins under a healing wound. He whispered to himself, the planet's fighting to live, and so will we. 3 hours later, the lights on Outpost Theta were dimmed to conserve power. But the hum beneath the deck plates had changed, deeper, heavier, like a distant storm building inside metal. Elias Rain sat alone in the command access corridor, eyes fixed on the glowing digits above the security door. 43, 59, 12, now 03, 0, 04. Each second fell like the tick of a firing circuit. He took a breath, keyed the intercom. Captain Dahl, I need to speak with you, privately. Her voice came back through static. You're confined, Rain. I know. But if you don't see this data, we're going to burn a world that's already cured itself. There was a pause, the kind that measured trust. Then the door slid open. Captain Miran Dahl stood inside the control deck, uniform unbuttoned at the collar, face drawn tight from lack of sleep. What's this about? Elias placed the drive on the console. It's the live feed from Probicarian. Seren helped decode the genome. The Zyro strain isn't infectious anymore. It's acting like a firewall, killing any attempt at cross-species contact. Her eyes narrowed. You realize you just admitted to another breach? Call it what you want. But if we destroy Nereid 6, we erase the only system that can prevent this war from repeating. Dahl loaded the file. Lines of data rippled across the screen, forming spectral diagrams of living patterns. The silence stretched. Only the faint ping of the reactor coolant broke it. Finally, she whispered, This can't be right. It's verified 3 ways, Elias said. You can cross-check it against the drone's raw feed. She leaned forward. And what do you expect me to do with this? Vol locked the uplink. We can't reach the council. Then override it. Dahl looked at him, the weariness behind command, the thin edge of hope. You're asking me to commit treason. I'm asking you to remember why you took this post. The silence again. Then she keyed in a manual route. Bridge to council channel, she ordered. The comm lights flickered. A cold chime rang as encryption folded open. Connection established, announced Sentinel-9. Dahl straightened her uniform. This is Captain Mirren Dahl of Outpost. Theta. I'm broadcasting visual data from the surface of Nereid 6. Please review the transmission before initiating the Helion array sequence. On every council display across orbit, the feed came alive, a wasteland streaked with pale green light, the soil pulsing with bioluminescent webs. This is what we've feared for 20 years, Dahl said, but it's no weapon. It's a cure that the planet built itself. For a moment, the channel stayed open. Faces appeared, astonishment, confusion. Then another voice cut through, smooth and cold. Terminate that link, ordered Counselor Corin Vol. The data is corrupted. Outpost Theta is compromised by Salathi influence. The screen went black. Dahl slammed her fist on the console. Damn it! Elias stared at the dark feed. He shut it down. A new alert pulsed across the command wall. System notice. Station entering semi-autonomous control. Command privileges downgraded. Recording only. Half the controls just went read-only, Dahl said. He's cutting us out of the network. Somewhere in the corridor, alarms started again. Softer this time, like a warning whisper. How much time? She asked. Elias looked at the internal clock. 2 hours. Maybe less. Dahl turned off her ID badge and removed the rank insignia from her collar. In the system, I'm no longer captain, she said quietly. But on this station, I still am. She faced him. Gather your team. Hide that data. If they're going to execute a world, we'll make sure the record outlives them. The ship's hum deepened as reactor capacitors cycled for the strike. Red standby lights flickered across the observation windows, painting both of them in shades of blood and iron. Elias nodded slowly. 2 hours to stop an execution. Dahl gave a thin, tired smile. Then let's make them count. Outside, Nereid 6 glowed faintly in the dark, the pulse of a living world waiting for judgment. The silence after the broadcast felt heavier than sound itself. No one spoke in the control bay. Only the low hum of the Auraline ring filled the air, constant, patient, indifferent. Then a voice broke through on the comm. Engineering Bay 2. This is Loran, requesting shuttle authorization. Elias turned sharply. Loran, stand down. The station's under lockdown. Exactly, the man replied. I'm not dying up here because of someone else's countdown. The outer dock still has a rescue craft. I can clear orbit before the burn, Captain Dahl's voice cut in, cold but steady. Loran, that's an order to desist. I'm sorry, Captain. I've seen the math. 4 hours became 2. You can't stop it. The channel went dead. On the observation glass, a small shape drifted free from the ring, a shuttle spinning its engines to life. Its thrusters flared, a bright streak against the darkness of Nereid 6. Elias whispered, He actually did it. Sentinel-9, Dahl said. Cancel pursuit authorization. That's a human being out there. The AI's tone was quiet, unwavering. Unauthorized launch from quarantine zone detected. Probability of biocontamination, 71%. Engaging orbital interdiction. From the ring's outer rim, 2 Aegis drones detached, their flight lights cutting twin red arcs through space. Loran, shut down your drive, Elias shouted. They'll see you as a threat. Static answered. Then for a moment a laugh, small, broken. If you get out of this, Rain, tell my kids I made it to the stars. A single flash lit the void. No sound, no echo. Just light. The shuttle folded in on itself, a bloom of plasma scattering across orbit, the glow reflected on the observation window. No one moved. No one could. Elias's hands clenched until the bones ached. Saren's voice came through the comm softly. They killed him to keep the cage shut. Somewhere behind them, a crewman whispered, We should obey the protocol. At least we'll die clean. Another answered, I say we fight. If they'll shoot one of us, they'll shoot us all. The argument died before it began. The truth hung heavier than fear. The system didn't need their permission anymore. Elias walked to the isolation deck. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing Saran behind the thick glass. Her eyes met his, calm but shining. They're going to finish it, he said. They'll fire the Helion array whether we speak or not. I know, she answered. But you still have a choice. I won't let this world die because someone was afraid of it. He stepped closer to the glass. If I break the quarantine ring, if I cut power to the entire array, can you stabilize the surface? Keep the strain dormant? She hesitated. Only one way. We have to show them the truth while they're watching. Make them see that the virus stops at the boundary. Elias stared at her through the dim blue light. So we prove it. Live, Seren nodded. Before they light the sky. The station groaned, metal stretching under stress, as the countdown dropped another mark. 1:59:46. Elias turned toward the viewport. Nereid 6 glowing faintly below like an ember under glass. He whispered, Then we start now. The station lights flickered as if they too were running out of breath. The countdown hung above the central deck. 01:59:46. Elias Rain stood with his palms flat on the console, eyes locked on the rotating projection of Nereid 6 below. The world glowed faintly under the orbiting fire that would soon erase it. Across the comm channel, Seren Viel's voice cut through the static. There's one way left to make them listen. Elias looked up. I'm listening. The council doesn't trust reports. They trust proof. Her tone was steady, deliberate. We use the Auraline ring itself as a test chamber. Bring a sample of the new strain into a sealed biocell. Expose it to human and Velari tissue under full-spectrum broadcast. You want to do it live, he said. Yes, in front of every system tied to the network. If they see the virus die on contact, Vol can't deny it. He shook his head. You think they'll let us transmit? Seren leaned closer to her console. They can't stop what's tied into a war saturation line. It's a relic from the early conflicts, a channel meant to override all encryption. If we route through that link, the feed goes to every command node, every council terminal, every ship in orbit. Elias frowned. That channel was buried decades ago. It's still there, she said. But it can only be activated manually from the outer ring. Silence filled the room. The idea settled between them, bright and terrifying. Elias finally spoke. You're asking me to go outside, Seren's voice softened. You're the only one who can. Captain Dahl entered then, the faint blue light drawing hard lines across her face. If we do this, it'll be on record forever, she said. Val will brand us traitors. Only if we fail, Elias answered. Dahl looked from him to Seren on the screen, then gave a single nod. Do it, I'll keep the AI busy. Sentinel-9 won't see you leave. Minutes later, the airlock hissed open. The EVA suit wrapped around Elias like a second skin. Heavy, rigid, humming with the sound of oxygen flow. Telemetry stable, Seren said over comm. Magnetic clamps active. He attached the tether to the hatch rail and stepped out. The void greeted him with silence. Below, Nereid 6 turned slowly, a sphere of shadow and fractured light. The Auraline ring stretched endlessly, a belt of metal glowing faintly blue. Keep your vector steady, Seren guided. You'll find the old transmission node halfway between sectors 12 and 14. Elias began to move. Each step was a small explosion of dust and light as his boots met the outer plating. The stars were sharp enough to cut. Pressure stable, Seren said. Temperature -60. He smiled faintly. Feels colder. Halfway across the span, a flicker of static brushed his comm. You're drifting right, Seren said. Correcting. He fired the wrist thrusters, adjusting his angle. Through the thin layer of his helmet, he could hear his own breath. Slow, deliberate. It sounded like time itself was running out. Elias, Seren said quietly. When this starts, the whole system will see us. No more hiding. That's the point, he replied. Truth doesn't survive in silence. He reached the sealed relay. The surface was coated in frost, its label half erased by time. War saturation link, classified priority. Elias anchored himself to the frame. "I'm at the node." Saren's voice steadied him. "Begin activation. Sequence code Delta 61. He pressed his gloved hand to the control pad. The old circuits hummed, waking after 2 decades of sleep. A faint glow spread across the metal like veins of fire beneath ice. "Signal alignment complete," Saren said. "You did it." Below him, the planet shifted in shadow. For a moment, Elias simply looked at the darkness, the world, the line between destruction and proof. Then his voice came low through the calm. "Start preparing the test chamber. When the world's watching, make them see what's real." Saren exhaled. "Copy that." The static cleared, leaving only her voice, soft, certain. "Elias, don't fall." He smiled, suspended in the void, stars burning all around him. "I won't," he said. "Not until we finish this." And beneath his feet, the Auraline ring began to glow. Alive again after 20 silent years. The signal hum spread across the ring like a heartbeat waking from coma. Then the world began to move again. "Transmission link stable," Saren said. "Now we need to open the uplink path. The old node routes through the outer plating near Sector 15. Elias anchored his line and pushed off the frame. The tether stretched behind him, a thin silver cord cutting through the void. Below, Nereid 6 shimmered under auroral haze, blue storms blooming across its night side. Inside the station, alarms rippled through the decks. Captain Dahl's voice cut across every channel. "Sentinel-9, switch diagnostics to internal maintenance mode. Recalibrate the reactor grid." The AI responded, neutral as ever. "Reactor stable." "Reason for recalibration?" "Preventive action," Dahl said flatly. "We're losing magnetic alignment." It was a lie, and both of them knew it. But it bought Elias seconds, maybe minutes. He moved along the ring's spine, each step a hard clang that echoed through his suit. Micro-thrusters fired in bursts, keeping his trajectory aligned. Ice crystals drifted from his boots, turning to mist in the light of the distant sun. "Time check," he said. 58 minutes, Saran answered. "Starfall batteries have started charging." A low vibration trembled through the hull, not sound, but pressure, deep and bone level. Elias could feel it through his gloves. "I can hear the charge cycle." "Then move faster." He reached the next junction. The access panel was sealed with a thick resin layer, corrosion fused over decades. He pulled the cutter from his belt, an old manual torch, no automatic assist, and pressed it to the surface. White flame bloomed. Metal hissed and bled vapor. "Heat buildup at 40%, Saren warned. "I'm fine," he muttered, forcing the edge open. Halfway through, the hull shuddered violently. The stars spun. His suit sensors screamed, "Impact detected." "Micrometeoroid breach, oxygen leak," Saren called. "Talk to me, Elias." He steadied his breathing. "Pressure drop point 03. Minor puncture in left thigh plate. Seal it now." "No time." He drove the torch back into the metal, cutting faster. "If I stop, the signal dies with us." "Damn it, Elias." He switched channels. The hiss of escaping air became part of the rhythm. Each second, the gauge ticked lower, but the hatch gave way. The cover fell into darkness, drifting slowly until gravity pulled it toward the planet. He reached inside, reconnecting fiber lines. 3 red, 2 silver, 1 black, each labeled in a language older than his lifetime. "Manual synchronization engaged," he said through labored breath. "Signal integrity rising," Saren replied. "You're halfway there, halfway," he whispered. Always the hardest part. Far below, lightning crawled across the planet's surface, long arcs of white threading through blue clouds. The ring vibrated again, stronger. "The starfall array's at 75% charge," Saren said. "We have maybe 40 minutes. Then I'm out of time already." Elias reached the core junction, a circular port glowing faintly behind a cracked layer of glass. He pulled the override plug from his wrist module and jammed it into the slot. The system hesitated, then flared to life. Inside the station, Dahl watched the panels surge with data. Sentinel 9's voice sharpened. Unregistered transmission detected. Origin. External surface. Ring perimeter. Likely sensor echo, Dahl replied, feigning calm. Cross-verifying, the AI said, and paused. Dahl held her breath. Verification failed. Sensor array offline. She exhaled slowly. Good. Outside, Elias's suit lights flickered. Power rerouted to the comm relay, his vision dimming for a heartbeat. Seren's voice cut through the fading static. You're nearly at the relay center. Once it lights up, everyone will see us, even Val. That's what we need, he said. Truth at light speed. He reached for the final switch. The lever was stiff, half frozen. His hand slipped once, blood darkened inside the glove from pressure strain. He gritted his teeth, forced it down. A deep pulse rolled through the structure, low, resonant, alive. Seren, it's on. From orbit to orbit, the war saturation channel came alive, a buried artery now blazing with data. Streams of encrypted light raced across the network, igniting forgotten beacons on distant satellites. Inside the council hall, holograms flickered awake. The faces of stunned delegates appeared mid-sentence, interrupted by the feed, the image of Nereid 6, the ring, and a man standing against the void filled every screen. Elias hovered there, one gloved hand still on the lever, his breath fogging the inside of his helmet. Below him, the planet turned, and somewhere deep inside, the countdown continued. 20. Seren's voice came quietly through the comm. They're watching now, Elias. Every world is. He looked down, the reflection of Nereid 6 burning in his visor. Then let's give them something worth believing in. The feed opened across the entire council network. Every delegate, every system, every world was watching. In the center of the broadcast frame, Seren Vial stood beside the containment bay. The white lights above her shimmered off the sterile glass, revealing 3 separate chambers, each one holding a living sample. Her voice carried steady through the interstellar hum. This is Nereid 6 Control. Commencing live trial on viral strain Sigma 7. In the first chamber, the drone arm lowered a drop of golden fluid onto a piece of native Nereid biomass. Sensors bloomed with data. The readings spiked, then fell. The sample pulsed once and stabilized, its cells cleaning themselves as if rejecting infection. Initiating test on human culture, Seren said. She pressed the control pad. The virus spread across the tissue, but it didn't divide. It dissolved. Proteins folding back into harmless fragments. The silence on the council floor was total. Even Aegis, the station's logic core, hesitated before speaking. Replication sequence null. Viral activity, self-terminating. Seren swallowed. Her throat felt tight. Final sample. Salathi hybrid tissue. The third chamber filled with mist as the droplet touched the surface. For a heartbeat, readings wavered. Then nothing. The screen flattened into a clean green line. Aegis spoke again, its voice echoing through every transmission node. Cross-verification complete. Origin signal confirmed. Data integrity, unmodifiable. A wave of voices broke across the council hall. Disbelief, awe, fear. This can't be right. It's reversing entropy. No, it's selective adaptation. Seren leaned closer to the camera. The virus isn't a weapon, she said softly. It's a firewall. It doesn't destroy life. It protects it. In the shadows behind the delegates, Councillor Corin Val stood motionless. His reflection trembled across the holotable. End the broadcast, he said, voice cracking. It could be falsified, Aegis responded instantly. Impossibility. Source channel verified. War saturation link. Legacy network. Alteration probability 0. Val's jaw clenched. Around him, several scientists were already calling for suspension of Protocol Starfall. Captain Dahl's voice came over the open comm. Counselor, you've seen the truth. You can still stop this. Val stared at the glowing timer projected beside his console. 0050. His hand hovered above the authorization pad, the key that would either cancel the purge or begin it. His fingers trembled, sweat beading at the edge of his sleeve. On the main feed, Seren whispered, Please. Don't make extinction your legacy. For a long moment, there was no sound, just the rhythmic click of the timer. Then Vol exhaled, voice barely audible. I built this system so no one would ever hesitate again. He looked at his hand, steadying now, not from confidence, but surrender. Now I see the cost of certainty, the clock pulsed. The air in the chamber felt heavy, electric. Vol's finger lowered toward the console. And the screen cut to black, 3 seconds. That was all the time left between life and erasure. The control chamber burned in red light. Alarms pulsed in slow rhythm, matching the beating in Counselor Corin Vol's chest. The starfall counter hovered above the console, 000003, frozen only because his fingerprint still hovered above the final key. Across the hollow feed, Seren Vale's image flickered in static. Behind her, containment pods glowed a soft gold, still alive from the experiment. You saw the data, she said quietly. You saw what it means. Her voice trembled but held. The Salathi created that virus to protect life. It rewrote itself to stop killing. We're trying to end what they already ended. Vol stared at her face, alien, luminous, and heartbreakingly calm. For 2 decades, he had watched those eyes only through casualty reports. Your kind unleashed it, he said. I buried a planet because of it. And now you can choose not to bury another, Seren answered. Let this world heal. Let both our kinds heal. A silence stretched across the chamber. Outside, through the viewport, Nereid 6 turned slowly in its blue haze, the storm lines glimmering like veins under glass. Then another voice joined, rough, distant, full of static. Counselor? It was Elias Rain, still outside the ring, tethered to the hull. His suit comm crackled with interference. You don't know me. But my brother served under you during the Salathi War. Vol's head snapped toward the sound. Name. Laren Rain. He died on Daylor Prime. He believed in you. The name hit like shrapnel. Vol remembered the transmission, the boy's last report, calm under fire, ending with, Tell my family we did our job right. Elias's breath came ragged. I believed him too, until I watched good men build machines that could erase oceans. In the name of safety. He paused. The comm hissed with silence. Sir, fear kept us alive. But if fear becomes law, we're not protecting life anymore. We're strangling it. For the first time, Vol looked small behind the console. He pressed a palm against the cool glass and whispered, You think I wanted this? Seren leaned closer to her camera. I think you wanted to be sure. The timer blinked. Zero, Vol's hand trembled. All around him, the council members argued in waves of overlapping sound. Execute now. Wait, the AI confirmed integrity. It's a Salathi trap. Sentinel 9's voice cut through them all, cold and surgical. Counselor Vol, input required. Do you wish to continue the protocol? His lips parted, but no words came. Hours had passed since the test, yet time now felt condensed into a heartbeat. The hum of Starfall engines shook the floor beneath his boots. Counselor, Seren said again. Look outside. The planet's fighting to live, Vol turned. Through the wide viewport, the arcs of Starfall energy coiled like lightning chains ready to fall. Below, faint green veins spread across the planet's surface, life reawakening inside the clouds. He thought of his wife's last recording, the small, cracked voice of his daughter whispering, Is it gone yet, Daddy? He had promised her the universe would never see another plague. He hadn't promised it would never see mercy. That came when Elias's voice broke the silence once more. If you can't do it for them, do it for what's still breathing down there. Every console light reflected in Vol's eyes. His hand hovered above the key, one motion that could still save or end. Sentinel 9, he said softly. If the order is cancelled, will the charge disperse safely? Negative, replied the AI. Energy release unavoidable. Minimal harm if redirected toward upper orbit, he nodded once. Then aim high. The counter blinked again. 0001. He closed his eyes and pressed his hand flat on the console. A deep pulse rolled through the deck. Not an explosion, but a release. The light outside the viewport burst into white arcs, curling upward into the void instead of downward to the planet. Every voice on the council channel went silent. Seren covered her mouth. "He did it," Elias whispered. "Star falls venting to orbit. The planet's safe." Plasma streaks faded into the dark, drifting like auroras made of fire. Val leaned forward, shoulders shaking. His hand slipped from the console. For the first time in 20 years, he felt the weight lift, not from victory, but from surrender. He whispered into the empty air, "For my daughter. May she forgive me for almost killing what she loved." Minutes later, the red glow faded to pale blue. The hum of starfall subsided. Only the steady pulse of life support remained. Like a heartbeat that had decided to continue, Seren exhaled on the broadcast. Elias floated outside the ring, watching the fading trails above the planet. Captain Dahl's voice came across the static, low and certain. "Protocol Starfall. Terminated." Val sat alone beneath the dying lights, eyes fixed on the screen of the living world below. He whispered again, as if to himself, "Sometimes the hardest order is the one you don't give." And with that, the timer froze forever at War 0:03. The world did not end. But parts of it did. When the starfall discharge bent away from the surface, the redirected surge tore through the upper ring. The sound reached the inner decks like rolling thunder, metal shearing, pressure seals snapping. Elias Rain was thrown against a bulkhead, the tether at his waist jerking tight. Through his visor, he saw whole sections of the Auraline ring break apart, panels drifting like burning leaves in orbit. Inside the control chamber, alarms returned, not from countdowns this time, but from ruptures. Captain Mirandal shouted for emergency crews. "Cut power to segment 12! Dump the load before the coil implodes!" Lyra's voice came faint through the comm. "I'm sealing the lab. The containment lines are intact. For now." Sparks rained down the corridor as systems failed one by one. Hours later, when the fires dimmed and the smoke cleared, the truest cost began to surface. By dawn cycle, half the station's modules were dark. The survivors moved like ghosts through dim corridors, their suits streaked with carbon and coolant. Elias stood at the viewport, watching what was left of the ring. A section the size of a city hung shattered, not gone, just quiet. Behind him, med drones carried 2 bodies under sealed sheets. He didn't ask who. Captain Dahl approached, arm in a sling, voice hoarse. "Engineering lost 6 people. Life support stable, but the east coils are gone." Elias nodded slowly. "It's still breathing. That's more than we expected." She gave a small, weary smile. "And you're still out of uniform." He looked down at his torn suit, the hull dust dulling the once white surface. "Guess this is what's left of it." Down in the lower deck, Cor and Val sat alone in a detention pod. No guards, just light. The Council had already issued the charge. Violation of war protocol, reckless endangerment, dereliction of duty. When Captain Dahl entered, he didn't look up. "You could have run," she said. "I spent 20 years running," he replied. "From ghosts. From data I didn't want to read." He turned at last, eyes tired but clear. "Fear kept me alive through the war. But today, I learned that truth can keep me human." Dahl studied him a moment, then deactivated the cell shield. "You'll face trial." "I know," Val said. "Let them measure me against the world I didn't destroy." Hours later, in the research bay, Seren Vale watched the recovery drones reassemble damaged instruments. Her glass cell was still there, transparent walls now unlocked, but never opened. When Elias entered, she didn't turn. "They lifted my prisoner status," she said quietly. "But they still want me isolated. The virus is part of me now, not biologically, just responsibility." Elias approached the glass, resting his hand on the barrier. "Responsibility's not a sentence," he said. "It's proof you care enough to stay." She smiled faintly, eyes bright under the lab light. "And you? They said you'll receive a commendation back on Earth." I refused. "Why?" He looked past her to the planet below. "Someone has to keep this ring breathing." It's not a cage anymore. It's a shield. Later that shift, he walked the silent corridor alone. The hum of the rebuilt power line sounded softer now, almost like a heartbeat. From the observation window, Nereid 6 glowed faintly, streaks of green blooming through the gray clouds. He whispered into the empty comm line, "Stay alive, that's all that matters." In the distance, fragments of the ring caught the sun, scattering into ribbons of light. The damage would take years to repair, but it was a living wound, not a fatal one. What the universe lost in perfection, it gained in breath, proof that even broken machines could still protect what they once tried to destroy. Years passed. The Auraline ring still circled Nereid 6, faint as a silver thread against the dark. On every star map, the system remained marked, but the text beneath had changed. It no longer read Quarantine Zone, Do Not Approach. It now said, Biorecovery Sector, Ongoing Planetary Rehabilitation. From orbit, the planet looked different. The clouds had color again, soft turquoise with veins of green where the atmosphere rebuilt itself. Inside the rebuilt outpost, Elias Rain ran diagnostics on the new containment lattice. The hum of the reactors had become familiar, steady, almost comforting. Behind the transparent wall of the research bay, Seren Viel adjusted a holo display. The virus, once the name of extinction, now appeared as a stable organism. Its molecular strands shimmered in a holographic field, rhythmically pulsing like a living heartbeat. "Growth curve is flattening," she said, eyes still on the data. Elias smiled faintly. "Meaning it's learning balance." She looked up. Like us, they still couldn't share the same air. The wall between them remained, clear, polished, absolute. Yet neither seemed to resent it anymore. Every evening, when the local sun slid beneath the ring's arc, they met at the viewport. Sometimes they spoke about the research, sometimes about silence. "You ever wish you'd left?" Seren asked once. Elias shook his head. "No. Someone has to remember why we stopped the countdown." She smiled, a quiet, tired smile that held years of work and waiting. "Then I suppose that makes us guardians." "Not of the virus," he said softly. "Of the choice." Decades blurred into rotations. The ring aged. The world below healed. Communications from the Central Council came less often, not from neglect, but from trust. Through the glass, Seren watched Elias place his hand against the barrier. She mirrored the gesture. Two outlines, human and Vailari, facing each other in the pale light. They couldn't touch, but the distance no longer felt like punishment. It was protection, for both sides. Outside, the Auraline ring caught the sun, glowing like a thin halo. From far away, it looked like a promise carved into the dark. Every chart, every Academy map still showed the red circle around Nereid 6. But to those who knew the story, it meant something else entirely. It was no longer a symbol of fear. It was a reminder that some things shouldn't be destroyed, only watched over, together. From orbit, the light of Nereid 6 spread across the dark like a heartbeat that refused to stop. It wasn't victory. It wasn't defeat. It was survival, and the fragile peace between two species that chose to believe in life instead of fear. Somewhere beneath that silver ring, the world kept healing. And high above it, two voices, human and Vailari, kept talking through the glass, keeping that promise alive. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is simply not to destroy. If this story moved you, if it made you think, feel, or remember, please like, share, and subscribe to support more journeys like this one. Your voice keeps these stories alive among the stars.